I want you to do something for me. Take a look at your smartphone.
Yeah.
Like it's probably sitting right next to you, right? Or maybe you're even holding it right now.
Yeah, probably listening on it.
Right, exactly. So think about the last time you downloaded a seemingly harmless app.
Yeah.
Like maybe it's a local weather tracker or a transit schedule or, I don't know, a free Sudoku game or something.
Sure.
You open it up and you get that standard little system prompt, the one asking, allow this app to track your location.
Oh, yeah. And most of us just hit allow, right? Because we just want the friction to end. We want to check if it's going to rain, or we just want to play our game on the subway.
Right.
The trade-off feels entirely localized to that specific moment.
Yeah. I mean, we assume the absolute worst case scenario is that, the app figures out what neighborhood we're in and serves us a targeted ad for a coffee shop a few blocks away.
Exactly. It just feels like a minor annoyance.
Yeah.
A fair trade for getting a free piece of software.
Yeah, right. But the reality buried in our stack of sources for today's deep dive completely shatters that illusion. Like, every time you click allow tracking for those targeted ads, you're actually actively feeding a global military-grade surveillance network.
Yeah, the jump from consumer marketing straight into the realm of tactical intelligence is jarring.
It really is.
But it is happening constantly in the background of our devices. The investigative reports we're unpacking today from netspolitik.org, the French investigative site Mediapart, and the Bayerischer Rundfunk, they all zero in on this specific pipeline. Yeah. Because yours is an ecosystem that's driven by a technology known as ADT.
Okay, let's unpack this, because ADINT stands for Advertising-Based Intelligence. And before we even get into the specific spyware or the companies selling it, I really want to understand the physics of this.
Right.
Like, how do we get from a Sudoku app pinging my location, right, to tactical intelligence? Because I think a lot of people imagine their data going to some server at, I don't know, Google or Apple, and just sitting there in a locked vault.
Yeah, that's a huge misconception.
Yeah.
To understand the leap, we really have to look at the plumbing of the internet, specifically something called the bid stream.
Okay, the bid stream.
Right. When you open that free app and an ad space loads, an auction happens in milliseconds.
Wow, okay.
Advertisers are literally bidding on the right to show you an ad. And to facilitate that auction, the app broadcasts a package of your data out to dozens, sometimes hundreds, of ad exchanges.
And what's actually in that package? Like, what are they sending?
So crucially, it contains a unique identifier tied to your specific device. It's called a mobile advertising ID, or a MAID.
Okay.
Along with that MAID, it broadcasts your precise GPS coordinates, your IP address, the time of day, and details about your operating system.
And this is all supposedly to help local businesses target you, right? Like, my local pizza place wants to know I'm nearby.
Exactly. But the data doesn't just disappear after the ad loads. Not at all. That bid stream is a continuous waterfall of raw intelligence. There are these commercial data brokers whose entire business model revolves around siphoning that waterfall.
Oh, man.
They're essentially vacuuming up billions of these location pings every single day.
Wow.
And they package this vast ocean of coordinates, and they sell it to specialized ADINT firms.
Wait, I have to push back here for a second.
Sure.
If millions of phones are pinging all at once across a city, sending coordinates and timestamps into this massive data broker database, isn't that just a chaotic mess of static on a map? Like, how does an ADINT firm actually turn that noise into intelligence?
Well, the raw data on its own is just noise. You're right.
Yeah.
The value of an ADINT firm is the refinement process.
Okay.
They take those endless rows of coordinates and structure them into highly searchable databases. They aren't just looking at a map of a city, right?
Right.
They're looking at the lifetime geographic footprint of individual MAIDs.
Oh.
So if a device pings at a specific coordinate hundreds of times between, say, midnight and 6 a.m. over a period of months.
Right. The algorithm automatically flags that coordinate as the device's home address.
Exactly.
And if it pings at an office building from 9 to 5, that's the workplace.
You got it. And it builds what they call a pattern of life. And once you have a pattern of life, the data is essentially de-anonymized.
Right, because the brokers always claim this data is anonymous.
Oh, always.
Because it doesn't have your legal name attached to it. It just says, device 7A3B.
Right. But if device 7A3B sleeps in your bed, goes to your office, drops your kids off at a specific daycare, and visits your doctor.
It doesn't matter if your name is on the file.
Exactly. The device is you.
Yeah. Your physical movement is as unique as a fingerprint. Which brings up a massive red flag for me. Under European privacy laws, specifically the GDPR, there is this core principle of purpose limitation. Like,
Yes.
if I consent to a weather app tracking me to show me, I don't know, umbrella ads,
Well,
I am granting permission for that specific purpose.
and the friction here is that data brokers are exploiting loopholes. They often cite uh, legitimate interest, or they bury clauses in 1,000-page terms of service
Oh, of course.
to essentially launder that marketing consent into security surveillance.
Wow.
Legal experts argue that this trade is highly illegal under the GDPR.
I mean, it's like giving a valet the keys to park your car, right?
Yeah.
And then discovering he used them to make copies of your house keys on the same ring and then sold those copies to a private investigator.
That is a perfect analogy.
Like, the initial consent to take the keys was real, but the scope of permission was completely violated.
The leap in purpose subverts the entire legal framework. No reasonable person interprets an ad pop-up as, oh, I am also consenting to have my precise movement history structured, analyzed, and sold to a security contractor.
Right. No one thinks that.
But that is exactly what the ADINT infrastructure relies on.
Which brings us to the actual tools being built on top of this infrastructure. Because we aren't just talking about abstract algorithms anymore, are we?
No, we're not.
The source material keeps pointing to a very specific piece of software that puts this really user-friendly face on all this data. It's called Webloc.
Yeah, Webloc. So it's a platform created by a US-based company called Penlink. And we actually have a very clear picture of its capabilities thanks to research from the Citizen Lab at the University of Toronto.
Right, led by the tracking researcher Wolfie Crystal.
Exactly. They analyzed how Webloc operates.
Yeah.
And the defining feature is how terrifyingly simple the user interface is.
Really?
Yeah, you do not need to be a data scientist or a hacker to use this.
So how does a user actually operate it? Like, if I'm sitting at a terminal with Webloc, what am I looking at?
You are basically looking at a standard digital map, very much like Google Maps.
Okay.
And the core function is geofencing. The user can simply take their mouse and draw a digital polygon-like a fence around a specific area. You could draw it around a single building, a city block, a border crossing, or even a public square.
And once I draw that fence with my mouse, what happens?
You set a time window, let's say last Tuesday, between 2 p.m. and 4 p.m.
Okay.
Webloc then queries that massive ocean of data broker bid stream data.
Yeah.
And it isolates every single mobile advertising ID that pinged inside your drawn perimeter during that specific time window.
It shows you exactly which phones were present.
Exactly.
I mean, that alone is wild. But earlier we were talking about pattern of life. So if I capture a device ID inside my geofence, say, at a political protest, can I click on that ID and see where it goes next?
Yes. You can query the entire historical database for that specific device.
Oh, man.
You can track its movement profile backward and forward in time. You can essentially watch the digital dot travel straight back from the protest to a home address.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. So the tool essentially allows you to retroactively follow anyone, anywhere, without them ever knowing. It makes complete sense why the initial known customers for Webloc were state authorities, right?
Oh, absolutely.
The sources note it was heavily utilized by U.S. ICSO Immigration and Customs Enforcement, as well as state authorities in Austria and Hungary.
Which fundamentally alters the relationship between the state and the citizen.
How so?
Well, historically, if a government agency wanted to track a suspect's location, they needed to demonstrate probable cause to a judge, right?
Right, they had to get a warrant.
Exactly. Get a warrant to ping a cell tower or place a tracker on a car. But ADINT allows governments to completely bypass the judicial branch.
Because they're just buying it.
Exactly. They simply open a commercial software platform, draw a box on a map, and buy the answers from a data broker using a corporate credit card.
Wow. It's literally the privatization of surveillance.
It is.
But the Mediapart investigation dropped a massive bombshell that takes this out of the hands of government security agencies entirely. Because if a tool is this powerful and all you need is money to access it, the private sector is going to come knocking.
Yeah, the trajectory of surveillance technology is that it always trickles down from the military intelligence complex into private enterprise.
Right.
And the case study in the Mediapart reporting involves One of the top 100 most valuable companies in the world.
Yeah.
LVMH, Moet Hennessy Louis Vuitton.
Wait, the luxury fashion brand?
The very same.
Like the company making high-end watches, handbags, and champagne was looking at military-grade surveillance.
Yeah. According to the reporting, LVMH suffered a series of thefts in one of their luxury houses last year.
Okay.
And while the police were handling the official investigation, LVMH was also working with a private security firm named Emirante, led by a CEO named Alexandra Hollander.
Okay, I follow.
And Emirante approached LVMH to pitch a new advanced technology to help solve these internal security issues.
And the technology Emirante brought to the table was Webloc, the exact same ADINT platform being used by Border Patrol agencies. I mean, I was reading LVMH's PR response to the journalists at netspolitic.org, and the phrasing they use is just a masterclass in corporate plausible deniability.
The gaps in their statements are incredibly revealing.
They really are. Like, LVMH claims they had absolutely no idea what the, quote, nature of the technology was at the time of the pitch.
Right.
They concede that Emirante ran a test to demonstrate the capabilities of the software, but LVMH insists they didn't understand the underlying data sources.
They didn't.
Yeah, their official line is that the second they realized what was actually being proposed, they immediately halted all conversations. And they swear they never saw any reports or data from this test.
It is a violently swift distancing maneuver.
Yeah.
They're establishing the narrative that they were just blind participants in a meeting.
Yeah.
And if you look at how Emirante, the security firm, defended themselves to the press, it adds another layer to this ecosystem.
Right, because Hollander claimed his firm merely forwarded a use case drafted by Penlink to LVMH.
Exactly. They emphatically insist they do not, quote, sell or market Webloc.
I mean, it's just a semantic game at that point.
Oh, totally.
Emirante might not be a licensed software vendor selling CD-ROMs of Webloc, but they act as the conduit.
Yes.
They are the brokers introducing military-grade tracking to private corporate clients. And even if LVMH genuinely walked away from the table in horror, which who knows,
Right.
the profound takeaway is that this pitch even occurred in the first place. The Pandora's box is open.
The fact that a private security firm views ADINT as a standard solution for stolen luxury watches demonstrates just how normalized this has become in the corporate security world.
It's wild.
And the Mediapart investigation highlights that stopping theft is just the tip of the iceberg here.
So how else are companies trying to use this?
Well, Mediapart found internal documents and sources indicating that Webloc has been actively marketed to French companies since at least last year for much more aggressive operations.
Okay, like what?
It is being pitched as a tool to spy on corporate competitors and, crucially, to trace internal information leaks.
Wow. Which means hunting down whistleblowers.
Yes.
Like if a company suspects an employee is leaking toxic documents to a regulatory agency or a journalist, they don't have to hire a guy to sit in a parked car across the street from the employee's house with binoculars anymore.
No, they don't need physical surveillance at all.
The mechanics of this are just terrifying. Like if I'm a corrupt CEO, I could just log into Webloc, draw a geofence around the office building of a major newspaper,
Right.
and see if any mobile advertising IDs from my corporate headquarters happen to be pinging at a coffee shop right next to a journalist's phone.
Exactly. You cross-reference the two locations, and you instantly identify the leaker.
Oh, man.
What's fascinating here is that Wolfie Crissel, the researcher from Citizen Lab we mentioned earlier, he put the gravity of this into perspective.
What did he say?
He noted that abusing app and advertising data for surveillance is dangerous for democratic politics and legally highly questionable.
Yeah.
But regarding the corporate application specifically, he called the use of these invasive technologies by private firms, quote, completely unacceptable.
Well, yeah, because it operates in a total vacuum of oversight.
Exactly.
Like, a police department at least has internal affairs, public records laws, and court systems, as flawed as they might be sometimes.
Sure.
But a massive corporation tracking its employees through bid stream data, that completely bypasses labor laws. There is zero transparency.
And that lack of transparency is what makes the scale of this data market so difficult to comprehend.
Right.
And so we've talked about how it works mechanically. But to grasp the actual size of the threat, we have to look at the data broker files investigation.
Yes, I wanted to get to this. This was a massive joint investigation by netspolitic.org and the Bayrischer-run Funk, and they managed to get their hands on a data set straight from these data brokers. What was the actual volume of data they were looking at? Because I remember it being staggering.
It is. The journalists obtained a data set containing over 13 billion individual location data points.
13 billion, just an incomprehensible number.
It really is. And within that data set, the investigators were able to easily map the movement profiles of incredibly sensitive targets.
Okay, who are we talking about here?
They identified and tracked military personnel, active intelligence officers, and high-ranking government officials.
I mean, from a pure national security standpoint, that is a catastrophe.
Oh, it's a nightmare.
A foreign adversary doesn't need to deploy spies in Berlin or Washington. They just need a budget to buy bidstream data.
Exactly.
But what really stuck with me reading the data broker files were the granular, intimate details. Like, yes, tracking a general is bad, but this data exposed millions of everyday people, too.
Yes.
It showed exactly where they dropped their toddlers off at daycare. It tracked visits to specific medical clinics, psychiatrists, and even brothels.
Yeah, it creates a permanent, searchable record of human vulnerability. When an algorithm knows every location you visit, it infers your health conditions, your political affiliations, your religious practices.
And your personal struggles.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean? Because it leads to the most baffling question in all of this. If journalists can legally purchase 13 billion data points, and politicians across all parties publicly acknowledge that this is a massive national security threat for espionage and sabotage, why isn't the tap being turned off?
What?
Like, consumer advocates have been screaming for years to ban location tracking and profiling for advertising purposes. Just outlaw the sale of bidstream data. Why is this loophole still open?
The reporting reveals a profound layer of government hypocrisy here.
Okay.
The reason legislators and regulators hesitate to shut down the ADINT pipeline is that governments are actually addicted to using it themselves.
Are you serious? They want the loophole to stay open so they can keep buying the data.
The source material makes this explicitly clear. Rather than banning the commercial trade of tracking data, state agencies prefer to utilize the gray market.
Wow.
The investigations revealed that police in at least one German state are already actively using ADINT in their operations.
Wait, really?
Yeah. And when journalists pressed them on the issue, both state and federal governments in Germany refused to provide any meaningful transparency about their deployment of these commercial tools.
It's the ultimate double-edged sword. Like, they know it's a critical vulnerability that exposes their own military and political infrastructure.
Right.
But the convenience is just too intoxicating. It's so much easier to pay an ADINT firm than it is to build a legal case for a wiretap.
Exactly. The intelligence apparatus has integrated this commercial data into their daily workflow. Shutting down the advertising data market would effectively blind their own surveillance operations.
That is just incredible. So to look at the entire life cycle we've explored in this deep dive today, it literally starts with a moment of friction on a smartphone screen.
Yep.
A user just wants to see the weather, so they click Allow Location. That single coordinate ping is packaged with millions of others in the bitstream, scraped by data brokers and refined by ADINT firms like Penlink.
Right.
They build point-and-click interfaces like Webloc, where a user can just draw a shape on a map and de-anonymize anyone's pattern of life. And now that capability has bled from Border Patrol agencies into the corporate sector, pitched to luxury brands for theft, and utilized for corporate espionage.
The through line here is that our digital exhaust has a tangible physical value.
Yeah.
In a world saturated with information, we often think of data as abstract, right? Just numbers in the cloud.
Right.
But ADINT weaponizes that data in the physical world. It tracks where our bodies literally move through space and time.
Which leaves me with a thought I haven't been able to shake since reading this material. We've established that the technology trickles down. It starts with federal intelligence, then it moves to local police, then it jumps to massive multi-billion-dollar corporations like LVMH.
Yes, that's the pattern.
But historically, the cost of technology always approaches zero.
Always.
And class constantly expands.
Right, because the infrastructure has already been built, the databases exist, and the interfaces are just getting simpler and simpler to use.
So how long before this totally unregulated market scales down to the consumer level? What happens when a suspicious spouse, a stalker, or just a nosy next-door neighbor doesn't need to hire a private investigator, but can just buy a 24-hour location history of your phone with a credit card for, I don't know, $50.
That's a terrifying thought.
If the legal framework doesn't change, what happens to society when AD&T transitions from a tactical military asset to a standard off-the-shelf consumer product? It definitely makes you look at that little pop-up on your screen a whole lot differently.
It really does.
The next time you open a transit app or a Sudoku game, you really have to ask yourself, who exactly is buying a ticket to follow you around?